हेलो एवरीवन, वी टू डिस्कस अबाउट दैट। कंटिन्यू करते हैं टेस्ट 2 को। क्वेश्चन नंबर 18 बचा था। Poverty and the inequality is other problems that the diverse and more the attention in India and discuss there the implications and the suggest how India should address them. Introduction. As started and by the Mahatma Gandhi, poverty is the broadest and forms of the violence, and on the other hand inequalities is even the worse, and poverty created a gap and between the rich and the poor is the big large gap, and but is the inequality transactions across the religious, race and caste, genders, etc., thereby the creating the multipolar gaps and the stark impact of the risings and the inequalities and the poverty, and can be the inferred and from the occupation and wall the street movement, green zones and protected in the Iraq, etc., and it the global levels and big in the India's and most insurgencies and northeast problems and issues in the Jammu and Kashmir have the roots in the economically and the militia and the inequalities and the poverty the problems of the poverty and inequalities. The issues of the poverty and inequalities are not the getting and much the attentions in the public policy, and but they the diverse deserve and more the attention and due to the following reasons. Poverty. According to the Global and Multidimensional Poverty Index 2018 released by the UN, the 271 and millions pupils and moved out of their poverty between 2005 2006 and the 2015-2016 in India. The poverty and rate in the country has the nearly and the halved, falling from the 55% and to the 28% over the 10 years period. Despite and this the declines is the big and the chunk of the Indians steals and lives and below the poverty lines and the vicious and cycles, and once the pupils and get the trip in the various in the vicious and cycles of the poverty, it is difficult to the break as it's the restrict and opportunities available, lower income and poverty, low education qualities and the limitation opportunities. Increasing populations, the rate of the growth of the population and exceed the growth of the national incomes in India's and in the and the would the rate of growth and population exceeded with the growth of the national income in India, and the burdens of the reduction in per capita is mainly the borne of by the poor sections of society. Urban poor and the COVID and pandemics highlights and the issues of the urban poverty prevents in the Indian economic, and who are the very much and the vulnerable and to the rurals one, and according to the census of 2011 and 17.7% of the urban populations and comprising the 65 millions and pupils lives in slums and the unemployment and the under employments, and this there is other educated employments and the distinguished and unemployments, and poverty is just a the reflections and of this and the aspect and inequalities according to the world and the inequalities and reports in 2022 and in India's is amongst the poorest and most the unequal countries, and in India's the top and first and the whole 22% of the total national incomes, while the only and 13% goes to the bottoms and 50%, and there has been a rise in the private wealth in India's after the 1991 and economic reforms, and which is the remarkable up and from the 290% in the 980 and to 560% in 2020, and wealth gaps are the self and reinforcing, and because and raise the pupils and use their greater resources and to the expenses there's the powers and serious inequalities in the health cares, and according to the Oxfam and inequalities and reported and India's low spendings on the public health care systems and the focus on supporting private health care has led to serious inequalities in the access to the health care, especially and during the COVID-19 pandemic. The issues of the inequalities and poverty and got even the spread and during the COVID pandemics, and since there was the significant and increase in the wealth of the top 10 richest and the billionaires and in the countries. The rise in income and inequalities also the manifest and itself in the slowdowns in wages across the countries, and the emerging inequalities are not and the necessaries and outcomes of rising levels of income in the post and liberalizations era, but other depictions of the poor and redistributions and policies towards the discouragement of the accumulations by the government and with due and the sensibility toward inequalities. Gulf between poor and the rich leadings and to more and the more pupils in other states of penalty. Rich state of penalties and implications of poverty and inequality, increase in the health and the social problems and increase in the inequality and poverty has been and the responsible for the wide ranges of health and the social problems and from the reduced and from life and expectancy and higher in fact mortality and to poor the educational attachment and lower the social mobility and increased the level of violence and mental illness, economics crisis and instabilities, high levels of poverty and incomes inequalities are associated with the economic instabilities and crises, whereas more equals and the society tend to the have and longest the periods and of the sustained growth. For the instant and current social and unrested and the student protest and could be the seen as its the symptoms and decreased the productivities and there is the considerable evidence and that the productivities and growth rates and the inequalities and growth rates are the inversely and related poverty also limits pupils to regimes there the full human capitals and potential and thus the impacting productivity. Environmental degradation, rising inequalities, and poverty is other barriers in the fight against climates and changes according to the state of planets and reports. Greater inequalities and can lead to the more and rapid environmental and degradations because low increase lead to the low and investment in physical capitals and education. Societal breakdowns and inequalities leads to a social breakdowns in trust and solidarity and social and cohesion. It is the reduced purpose and willingness to act for common goods and for the instance and casual caste. Caste groups like the Jats, Marathas, and Patels are the demandings and reservations, while those already in the reservation bragged are the opposing measures to address them and both the poverty and the inequality required a holistic approach for their redressed. Following measures and can be taken and to the address and the above issues and widening tax and the blanket according to and the Oxfam and report government are the massively undertaxing the wealthiest and the individuals and the corporation and failing to collect revenues that could help and lift the responsibilities of care from the women and tackles poverty and inequality. Efficiency delivery of the public services in India's and economics reforms and should focus more on the reducing bottle and necks in the delivery of the public services and which can help and the alleviate and poverties and reduce inequalities providing the quality and education economic opportunities increase and with the skills and education it is the crucialis and that government invest in the developing better qualities and schools and colleges providing the employment and opportunity. Most of the pupils and who lives in poverty lacks skills requirement by the industries and there is other need for the skills trainings increasing government expenditures and fiscal instrument. Fiscal instrument. Conclusion. The issue of the poverty and inequalities is the major threat to Indians and democracy, and required and deliberated inequalities and poverty busting policy. While the state is other dominant actors is driving and this agendas, the efforts and need to be the complemented by the private sector and the civil society to accelerate its removal. Highlighting the major issues and the concerning women in India and discuss the role of the self-help groups and others the women organization in addressing them. Although women constitute almost half of India and the population of 1.2 billion, and they are the largely excluded from the participating in the economic activities and the decisions making, as well as the access to resources of the health, nutrition, education, etc. Men bodies, and most important the SGSH GS help women to understand and the release their the unique potentials and developed the courage to think and act the independently and express what they the desire and suffer, feel and speak out and express freely and the explores their the district's growth. Distinct growth and the development and women issues economic dependence because of the lack of the formal credit mechanism and SHG role in the addressing them. A whooping and 94% of credit allocation is directed into the smalls and the minimum business and helmets and by the man livings and the woman abysmity and the miseries and incentives and to the fulfill their the business aspirants. SHG and have the emerges as other rivals and economic arrangement for the financial entry and the entrepreneurship and pension and ventures of the social and degradations women as SHG and the become and the effective vehicles, especially in the providing financial inter and the mediation solution for the unbalanced and rural women and they the fulfill the credit requirement through the SHG bank linkage programs. Patriarchal society affect the confidence and potential in other survey on the role of SHG in this regard and women have responded and that they feel more the confidence and the independence to deals with their difficulties through the SHG and they cope and better with the patriarchal attitude, unpaid labor, high rate of employment and low females and labor forces participations rate with the India and recordings. A migrate and 22.3% in 2021 in the comparisons with 30.3% in 1919. Even the through and the working women's account for the approximately 432 millions, about the 343 billions are not in the paid formal job roles on or work to break out of the snacks and of the subordinated and entrepreneurships and the innovations and simple tools. SHG have the already made other significant contributions to developing entrepreneurships altitude more among the rural women and by the enhancing their the skills and giving them other change to engage in various entrepreneurship activities. Significant reductions and in the importance indicators of the health through the SHG research has the shown that the women's participating and women practicing and participating learnings and actions shows other 49% and reduction in the material materiality and lack of the woman representation in the decisions makings and roles of authority enhances the confidence to participate in the decisions making in SHG provided the woman with the confidence to the participates in decisions makings and affairs at the household levels as well as the at the community levels engagement and the leadership skill active involvement and in the different SHG initiatives help the members to grow and the leadership skill evidences also so that the often and women SHG leaders and are the choose as the potential candidates for the panchayats and the pradhana mantri or the representative of the panchayat raj institution PRI. Lack of the feminist and the solidarity in the patriarchal society, strengthening feminist and the solidarities as the woman from the similar background and grappling with all the sports of the tribulations and find the solace in theirs the minuscule community while the collectively and endeavorings and to the mitigates and each other's foes through the SHGS and collectively identified and analyzes the problems and they face from the perspectives of their social and the economically environments. It's help them to the pull and there's the migrants and resources, human and financials and the prioritizings. They are used for the solving and they are the own problems. A study conducted and by the Ashwini and Deshpandes and the Shantanu Khanna in 2020 reporters that SGG and had in the country. Question number 20. Does globalization equal westernizations and to what and the extent and has globalizations been the successful and in the offerings opportunities had the benefits? For the Indian society critically examine introduction. Globalization is an the ongoing process and that the involving the interconnected and changes in the economics, culturals, social and the politicals and spheres of the societies and westernizations in the change and brought about in Indian in Indian society and culture as a the result of the over 150 years and of the British rule and the terms and the subsumizing changes occurring at the different level of the technologies, institution, ideologies and values body. No globalization and the westernizations are the different concept and westernization is the changing from the traditional cultures to the western dominates and western and the imperialism and but the globalization is impact the tendency in which the technologies philosophicals and the economically advantage and can be the made and thought out the world with the global time zone and the boundaries and but the globalization has the surveyed as other medium for the westernization and the Americanizations and the MC McDonald and new the economic policies and aid the behest and of the World Bank, IMF and the introduction of Asian values etc. Opportunities and benefits for Indian society. Cultural positives and the glacializations and the emergenizations of the both locals and the global cultural practices. Kurtas and jeans and the revivals of the culturals and yogas, international days and Ayurvedas. E-commerce, the forums and marketings, the traditionals, handicraft and goods and the channa patra toys. Negative homogeneities and of the cultural and the mimi chinks and westerns and the culturals and the parties and the culturals and the marriage an increasing rate of the divorce and language and declines of the native languages and due to the promotes of the language promotes of the English language and more than the 10 languages of the India are the UNESCO indigenous language list. Political system positives and universal values and role of the law and democracy and the pluralism and the ratifications of ILO conventions. Increase in the global and accountabilities, improving the public and policy making. RTI from and the Scandinavian countries and Delhi and teachers and sent to the Singapore schools to learn and the best practices, happiness and curriculums and rise of the multinationals, transnationals, cooperation. It is the facilitated job creation, improvement in teaching. Negative impact sovereignty and minimums state and withdraw from the many sectors of the economic and losing the relevant of state environment positive promotions of the sustainable development SDGs goal and the Paris climate deal negative And conclusion, we cannot say and that the impact of the globalization and westernization have been the totally positive and or totally negative. It has been the both and is the still and associated as in the modern times. And rationalism and scientific education which views the modernization has their the origin in global and westernization are often the perceived as a the such as other sub and process of modernization.